Welcome to today's broadcast of North Idaho College Public Forum. The crew is comprised of NIC television students, and your moderator is North Idaho College political scientist Tony Stewart.
Welcome to today's program. We're going to be discussing with you a very serious topic. In fact, it's one of the great problems in the United States today. And on many polls that are taken, many Americans list this as the most important domestic problem of our times. We're talking about drug abuse in the United States. Here in North Idaho, we have an organization that's been working very much in this area for some time, and we're fortunate to have as our guest today the president of the Kootenai County Substance Abuse Council. Our guest is Jerry Douglas. This is only one of many things that she does. She's really, truly a community activist, but this is one of her major roles at this time as serving as president of that council. Jerry, welcome to the program. We're happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
And I'm happy to have a new panel member today, a visiting panel member, Mr. Rich Cook, who is an attorney in Idaho. In fact, he serves this time as the law clerk to the 1st Judicial District Judge Jim Judd. Rich, we're very happy to have you on the program.
Thank you, Tony. It's very nice to be here.
Jerry, if I may, I would start the questioning today, and I know that many of our viewers who come from other places and are not from North Idaho will be wondering what this council is. So I'd like for you to take a little time with our viewers to indicate something about the structure and the governing board of the Kootenai County Substance Abuse Council. We'll talk with structure first, and then we'll get into some of the purposes of the council. Can you just tell us something about the size of your board and how you choose those people and what your role is as president?
Okay, our board consists of 5 board members. We have an executive director, we have a president, secretary, and treasurer, and we also have a vice president. And our vice president, we're very lucky, is a young high school student that goes to Coeur d'Alene High School that has been with the council for many years. That's a real asset to us because he gives us an insight in a lot of the things that are going on at the local high school. But there are people from all different areas of businesses and life in Kootenai County.
Mm-hmm. Now your council, you are an incorporated organization.
Yes, we are. And tax exempt.
And tax exempt, and so contributions, of course, would be tax exempt.
Yes.
And you have a full-time paid executive director working with the council?
Yes.
Who is that person at this time?
Her name is Michelle Fink, and she's been with the council for about 3 or 4 years now.
Now, Michelle Fink is at a particular location where she can be reached. She has an office, does she, or does she work?
She has another job.
Oh, so she's taking this on as an extra responsibility.
This on the side.
Later in the program, we're going to get into contacts for people who want to volunteer to assist, or also people who have problems and needs, or have someone in their family that are. But would you take a little time to tell us about the purposes of the council? What's your charge or mission as a council?
Okay, the council was formed many years ago. I'm not exactly sure how many years. It's been in probably existence for an average of about 8 years, I'd say. It has grown in size. Different people have belonged. We have many organizations that belong. We've active participation by the schools in Kootenai County. Many teachers attend our meetings, which are held once every month on the last Tuesday of the month. We also have people from the different drug and alcohol rehabilitation places in town that come, directors from juvenile probation, all different police agencies, just a real community involvement. Anybody that's really interested in combating the problem with alcohol and drug abuse.
But the fact that you are such a diverse organization as far as who you work with, it seems to me, zeroing in on the fact that as we deal with drugs and those problems, that you certainly need to work with school systems, you need to work with law enforcement, you need to work with social agencies, you work with the business community, you just really try to reach all segments of the community.
We, on an average every month, probably send out in an average maybe 200 invitations, I would say. Not all people can attend because we do meet during lunch hour, which is hard for a lot of people to get to the meetings, but at least it gives them, makes them aware that we are in existence. And we do have speakers that come in, usually once a month, and educate us on drug and alcohol abuse in the community.
Is that my perception, or is my perception correct, I should say, that when you have your meetings, that the great bulk of that is to educate all of those from those different segments of the community?
It is. I think we as a council, with having these people come in and talk to us, is a real good resource for us, because we are a council that likes to know about it, and the more that we learn and the education that we receive, we can give to other agencies and people. We do a lot of public speaking and pretty much in the public eye, as far as being an area that if you have problems or want to help with drug or alcohol abuse, that you can join our council and help with the program.
I've noticed that you also work with the media very closely, so once this information you're gathering and fact-finding, you share it with the general public through both the printed and the live media, and I know that you get a lot of coverage. So do you kind of look upon the public as part of your mission to teach parents and young people and the general public about those abuses?
In fact, we do enjoy, we would really like to have parents come and join our organization. It's the meetings for everybody. Anybody can come, and we like to have them join us, and we do different fundraisers and different ways to, make money for the council, but our chief area is education and teaching us we can teach other people.
Thank you very much. Rich Cook.
Jerry, maybe I missed it. Is it correct to say your primary focus is on the schools?
Well, right now it's on the schools. I mean, it's always been, we're always concerned about the schools because the children are a main concern. If we cannot stop children getting into drug and alcohol abuse at a young age or whatever age, even up to the high school age, then we've got a problem. So our main concern is going into the schools and getting the schools to participate, because then we can reach our children.
Do you find there's any correlation between parental drug use and child drug use? I mean, does the council plan to expand its activities into the home?
They do, and that's by having active participation in parents. That would be one way to do that. We are going to be bringing a program into Kootenai County, and it is called the D.A.R.E program, and that is a real good program that'll be working with the Substance Abuse Council, the different law enforcement agencies in the county, as well as parents.
What is D.A.R.E?
Okay.
What does D.A.R.E stand for?
D.A.R.E is Drug Abuse Resistance Education, and it is D.A.R.E. It has been a program that was originated in Los Angeles County, and it has been in existence for quite a few years. It has gone nationwide as well as over to the Netherlands. I mean, the program has expanded greatly. It also, we have learned, is going to be looked at and seriously considered for going into the Department of Army schools in the over in Germany and the other areas that the Army has schools and the military. So it's really taken off.
I think probably most of us noticed in the media in the past couple of weeks the flashy black van with the red logo. Is that a nationwide logo?
That is a nationwide logo. In fact, last couple months during Christmas, I think, was the real point that they wanted to do. They had a lot of advertising on TV, constantly seeing the advertisements. As far as the end of it, they'd go D.A.R.E, D.A.R.E. So it's got a lot of media attention. It's very popular, throughout the states, and we're real lucky to even have the possibility of bringing it into Kootenai County.
I know both Tony and I are both very interested in the mechanics of the D.A.R.E program. Exactly what goes on?
Okay, the D.A.R.E program, as I said, was originated in Los Angeles County. It is a program that is a 17-week program geared to either 5th or 6th grade children, because they figure if they go into the 5th and 6th grade, the children are young enough that they can get them before they go on to high school and hopefully curtail their drug use. It teaches self-esteem. It teaches children how to recognize drugs, give them a pat on the back, saying, boy, I've gone through the program, I've learned, I know, and now I'll know how to say no. It's real important. If they don't have the self-esteem and good feeling about themselves, then chances are you're not going to be able to save them from drugs. But this is it's a wonderful program. In fact, we're lucky that local law agencies are real interested in this program. The Kootenai County, Post Falls, as well as the city, and we're going to be having 3 officers designated from each one of these agencies that will be a D.A.R.E officer. Their only job will be as a D.A.R.E officer. They will not be going into the schools to do any kind of disciplining. They will not have that kind of role. It'll be completely drug education and self-esteem taught classes. They'll eat lunch with the children. They'll go on the playground with the children. They'll be there, you know, just to convince them that drugs are bad, and I'm here to tell you they're bad. I think what's nice about this program is so many times they see law enforcement, you know, officers in the categories being law enforcement officers. They write tickets, they go in and do things that the children think are stopping crime, sometimes good, sometimes bad. But this way they're going to be in with the children, they're going to be interacting with the children, and they'll be there for the children. So we're real excited about the program.
Sounds like an interesting program.
Mm-hmm.
Our program goes over a rather wide geographical area, and I know that I'm familiar with some of the information from our viewers from other places, and in Spokane they're doing some very similar things. Law enforcement's been very instrumental in working with the school systems and the educational process. We have seen the growth of drugs simply skyrocket in this country in recent years, and it's not confined to one age group, and we know that there's been a tremendous increase in crime, particularly from addicts who become desperate for funds to support their habit, and including murder and robbery and so forth, and then very, very disoriented people who become very irrational in their behavior. It's increased the number of people in mental institutions and the prisons. So, Jerry, are you indicating that and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I'm wondering if we zero in on the children. That's certainly a very important part of trying to protect future generations from becoming involved in that use. But are there other things from your work and experience that we need to do in addition to working with young children and educating them to combat the drug problem? Does your council address, or other agencies that you work with, those people who are already beyond that system and are creating a crisis in this country?
Well, I think, as I look at it, if you can get most of these people, I think that the problem of drug and alcohol abuse, they're going to have children. I think the majority of them do. So the children are the ones that are seeing this. They're seeing the destruction in their family. They're seeing, you know, their money that they don't have because they're buying drugs, and the crime, and not having mom and dad home, and different things that are going on. So I think if you start with the children and teach them that drugs are wrong, then maybe they can educate their parents. Kootenai County is, we're small, but that doesn't mean that we're drug-free. You know, we're growing, we're getting bigger, the drugs are there. If we start educating and we let the people know that we do have a council, if they want to come and join our meetings, we can help them. There are people there from the different agencies in town that can help them. You know, there's a large support system if they're willing to go for it. You know, there's a lot of people to help them, but they just have to ask.
I've recently done some programs with the Post Falls School District, and in their junior high they have some special programs, heart-to-heart program. They have a lot of counseling they're doing now with children, or young people I should say, to young people. In your work and the D.A.R.E program and others, in addition to what I think is a wise program of letting them see police officers in somewhat a different light, as kind of a partnership with them and a friend. It's kind of like the old concept where the police officer used to walk the beat and got to know all the neighbors and know the children. But are you also working in the area like what I just gave as an example from Post Falls School District, where peers work with peers? Isn't that a very powerful way of dealing with the problem?
Well, as I said, we do have a young gentleman who does go to Coeur d'Alene High School on our board. He is the vice president, and in the past the Substance Abuse Council has sponsored dances in conjunction with Coeur d'Alene High School. We've gotten bands and promoted that, you know, saying come join us, have a good time, and be drug and alcohol free. They have gone over very, very well. Coeur d'Alene High School has also instrumented a program and has got quite a bit of media attention as far as getting kids to join this program. And I think, Rich, you mentioned the name of it, and
The one I'm familiar with is ID-FI.
That's it, ID-FI. I'm sorry, I couldn't remember it, but that is a really great program because the kids are constantly tested for drug abuse. And our young gentleman who is in the program speaks very highly of it, and I guess the kids have gone for it. The problem is that I think it's $25 for every child that's tested, and so they're going to have to raise money to support that program also.
So that becomes expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like
It's
money always
expensive.
becomes an
It
issue
is.
in all problems.
It is, and you know, and that's the root of the problem, is that we've got to have the funds to be able to promote these programs to get our children interested in, parents.
We're taping this program in February, and it won't run until March, but at the week that we're taping the program, there's just a report out from the national government that indicates for the first time in some years there seems to be a decline in the use of drugs among teenagers. And we don't have all the analysis of why that is happening. But are programs like D.A.R.E extensive enough across the United States and are becoming enough involved in the communities? You contribute that as part of the reason for this. This is good news that this is declining.
Well, they figure that if they go in and reach the children at 5th and 6th grade, the children are young enough that they'll be able, when they grow up, to have the incentive and the backing behind them through education and knowing how to say no, that by the time they reach the high school age, they'll know how to identify and basically say no. So that's good. It's proving that if we're getting our children young enough and educating them how bad drugs are and what they do to themselves and their family, that by the time they reach high school, they have the means to refuse it. And I think that's real important. That's one thing that D.A.R.E is shooting for.
Thank you. Rich Cook.
When it comes down to oversight and control of the D.A.R.E program, that would be the 5-member board of the Substance Abuse Council that you spoke of earlier? Or
Well, in conjunction with the local law agencies.
law agencies.
Right, because they will have the officers assigned to the program. We'll all be working together to get the program going.
Is this a program that is going to expand across the state? Are there D.A.R.E programs in place and operating in the state of Idaho at this point in time?
You know, I'm not exactly sure, and we've had, you know, we're not sure whether there have been in southern Idaho, but they have been in Worley, and they have been on a couple of the Indian reservations, and they've had really good success with them. In fact, they just had a graduating class a couple of months ago in Worley that our sheriff went down, as well as Stu Kimball, who's the crime prevention officer, and the kids just were so excited to be through with it. You know, just the adrenaline was wonderful. So it is in some of the communities in some of the states, but I'm not exactly sure where. But as far as northern Idaho, we will be a kickoff agency.
I think Tony mentioned a key word a little while ago, funding. Where does the funding for programs like D.A.R.E and the Substance Abuse Council, I know you have a full-time director, where does that come from?
Okay, we are always looking for donations. To make the council successful and to do the programs that we want to do, it always takes money, and especially on this D.A.R.E program, we are going to be writing grants. There's a lot of grant money available. It's just a matter of sitting down and writing it and getting the approval. We're hoping to get completely funded, but that isn't always a guarantee. When the kids graduate, one thing that's just is great about the program is that they do get shirts that says D.A.R.E on them, and we'll have their school on their sleeve. They get hats, notebooks, I mean just a lot of things to say you've made it and congratulations. They really will stick out, you know, and be very proud that they made it through the program. And so that may not be covered by grants, and that's what we're going to be looking for people to help us with. You know, schools can do fundraising and different things to help us get the supplies for that. Also, since D.A.R.E is something that we do have to get community involvement as well as grants on, we do have to find 3 automobiles. We are in need of 3 automobiles to either be given to us or worked out some kind of arrangement, since we as a council do not have the money to go out and purchase them, so we do have to have 3 vehicles. And Spokane has been very fortunate. In fact, the state of Washington, they have had, some of them drive Cadillacs. I mean, the local agencies, car agencies have just come through and donated cars, and it's just wonderful. They're all painted black with a big D.A.R.E on it and light bars, and off they go. They're just wonderful.
And when you're a young person, cars, one of the things that attracts you, and so you're really using that as a mechanism to get their attention. I'm always hoping when we do a program with someone like you where it's such a worthwhile cause that we can serve as a public service to our viewers to let them know how to get in touch with you And we're thinking of 2 or 3 things. One is if they'd like to volunteer to be an assistance to you. I know you have personnel hours that need to be put in. Secondly, that you need money, of course. And oftentimes you can be of assistance to people if they can tell you about certain problems in a particular aspect of the community or their family, and that you'd like to help them and guide them. Could you tell us where, I know you don't have an office at this time where it's open with the telephone number for the council itself, but could you share with our viewers, particularly in North Idaho, some people in law enforcement they could call and they will get them in touch with you or with others in the council? Okay,
at the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, Stu Kimball would be a real good source to get a hold of. So all they need to look in the directory for the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, and when they call that number to ask for Mr. Stu Kimball, and they can address this issue. Right, and if they were to say they're interested in D.A.R.E or interested in getting some information about the Substance Abuse Council, someone will return their call. Cliff Hayes, Post Falls Chief, is very involved in the program. I'm sure
at the police department.
At the police department, I'm sure that he would be welcome any calls, and also Dave Skates at the City of Coeur d'Alene Police Department.
He's the chief of police there.
And also Bob Moore in Rathdrum is very involved in the program, so he would be another source to get a hold of. You have really good connections with the police officers and chiefs at all the cities in the area. That's really, really helpful. Jerry, I'd like to move into another area that you really got my attention when you were talking about this earlier. And I just appreciate the fact that you're working with the young people and their self-esteem. I'm very involved in human rights, and we know that in the field of discrimination and prejudice, that it attacks self-esteem, and if you can keep people from allowing that to happen, they will not be the victims they would have been. But I'm also thinking, in addition to your working with the young people and self-esteem, that oftentimes, in some young people's case, that's being that is a problem at home, where maybe both parents are gone, and they have hardly any contact with the young people. Or there are unfortunately some families in which there's a lot of domestic violence, and the children are physically abused, or a spouse is abused, and they observe that. That must be one of your great challenges, because if that is happening, unfortunately there are a lot of wonderful homes, but for those where it is not a good environment, and they come to the school, and you bring this program in, and you work with them in the 5th and 6th grade, I really feel for you and for the teachers in the schools, because you can have them so many hours and you can teach them this, but if they go back into a home where the self-esteem is destroyed, how successful can you be? How do you deal with that problem? Hopefully the officers that will be picked to do the D.A.R.E program will be the officers that can relate to the children, and that's one of the main goals that the D.A.R.E does have, that if there are problems, and we have heard stories from other officers that have come to talk to us about the D.A.R.E program that have put tears in your eyes about how they walked into a program and began teaching the kids, and the kids were adamant, I'm not going to learn this, I don't have this problem, I don't care, drugs aren't important. And by the end of the program, they've completely switched. There's a story of one kid that completely ignored the officer. By the end of the program, on the final day, he went up and put his arms around the officer and gave him a big hug, and he said, thank you. I learned so much. And when the officer tells this, he's crying. All of us are crying, because you just get so involved in wanting these kids to learn and to know, and that they're important, that they do make a difference in this world, that just having them reach for somebody, and they can do it at any time in the program. There's always things, if they know that there's a child in problem, that they'll have the resources in the community to say, help. We need to help this child, and people can step in and
So one thing that your council or the police officer you work with, if they identify those, then they can work with some other social agencies that can move in on that problem.
And a lot of kids may come up, if you feel comfortable and they don't want to tell anybody in the world that they're having these problems at home, but if they can relate to somebody and relate to this police officer and say, yes, this is going on in my home, that he can tell people and we can get in and help him, which is really great, because the police officer, as I've said, is there for him. He's not disciplining, he's not scolding, he's educating and helping.
You brought another point to mind, and then I'll return to Rich and the questioning, but sometimes, and I guess that's good, because we want to strive for perfection, and we set these programs and we want them to be 100% successful, and we want to save every child. even if that's not possible, if we can't reach the ideal, if you can save some of them, like the example you gave, that makes all the effort worthwhile, doesn't it?
It does. And, you know, a lot of people say, how do you know that D.A.R.E is successful? Tell me, you know, statistics. There aren't statistics out there. It's real hard to sit and pinpoint that this class of 39 children are drug-free at age 16. You don't know, and you'll never know. But if you've, as you said, if you've saved 10 of them from getting involved in drugs, then it's a success. You know, so it's real hard to tell, but it works everywhere else, and so it'll work in Kootenai County.
But you also have those case studies, like you just gave one, where you know individuals, they say it turns them around.
And you know, when the officer that Dave Scogan, there are 3 officers in Spokane, but Dave Scogan has been our person of contact, and he came down a couple weeks ago and brought his van down, and he had teddy bears the kids had given him. You know, just little things that the kids had given to him and said, thank you. You know, it made a difference in our life.
I guess I have one more editorial comment before we turn to Rich. Again, this is relationship with human rights. I have always indicated in my talks and comments is that if you can teach certain values or teach individuals not to be prejudiced or have bigotry or not to teach them to engage in drugs, that you don't have to undo that later. And so if you can have preventive, it's more effective than dealing with the problem later. Rich Cook.
I've noticed, excuse me, in some very candid literature coming out of the Los Angeles area on the D.A.R.E program that they attribute, as a result of the program, that these students have a better attitude towards police, they have less gang activity, racial incidents have dropped off, and all these things happen fairly quickly after the institution of the program. And it seems like a very positive thing to me. The officers who are going to be going to the schools, will they receive specialized training in how to bring about these type things?
Yes, that's a good point. In May, we will be sending 3 officers that are picked from each one of the agencies to a program that's very, very extensive. They'll be going to the national headquarters for the D.A.R.E training, and that's where they'll get all their training on different aspects. And the program that the children are taken through is very defined. There's 17 weeks and there's 17 programs. You know, you follow this one on this day and this one on this day. So it's worked out real well, but it's a real regimented, proven, you know, this is how we do it program. And it's great. One thing I did forget to mention is that throughout the program there are different role models that are brought in that have probably gone through the D.A.R.E program, that are their high school athletes, the kids that have been successful that come in and say, look at me, I've gone this far and I'm drug-free and alcohol-free and I've made it, and so can you. So it's a real important part of the program.
Jerry, with that I have to bring the program to conclusion. The time has gone by and we wish we had more time to discuss this important subject. But in closing, I know I speak for Rich and our staff when I say we commend you for taking your time to serve as President's Counsel, and we congratulate you on the good work and we wish you well in the future.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our guest has been Jerry Douglas, who is the President of the Kootenai County Substance Abuse Council. We've been talking about the issue of drugs and how to combat that and how to teach youth in particular. We hope you've enjoyed our program and you've found it helpful in your work on this issue. I would like to invite you to be with us again next week at this same time when we will discuss an important subject. Until then, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
North Idaho College Public Forum can be seen at the same time each week over this station. This production was videotaped earlier by an NIC student crew for viewing at this more appropriate time.